talked to Art Smith because Art Smith has won Chopped a couple of times. And I called him and I was like, Art, what did you do? Like, how did you get ready? And he said, I did what I know how to do. He said, it's going to be a lot of impressive stuff in there. If you don't know how to use it, don't try. It's like, stay true and authentic to who you are.
Right.
And that kept ringing in my head. Be authentic. Be authentic. And when I went in that Chop kitchen with everything you can think of at your disposal, I own a micro business. You know what I mean? So I was like, I don't have an ice cream machine. I don't have all these things. I have a food processor. I have a blender, right. And if you watch the show, those are the two things that I focus with, the two things I use, right? So, but that was the thing that kind of just kept ringing in my head.
From Fiore Communications, it's How I Got Here, a show of inspiring stories from Tallahassee area leaders, business owners, and neighbors, all the challenges, opportunities, inspirations, the twists and turns of life that led them to where they are today. Everyone has a story worth telling, and I am really grateful that we get to bring a few of them to you. I truly have been changed by my conversations with these amazing people, and I'm confident you will be too. I'm Dave Fiore, and in this episode, I speak with Shacafrica Simmons, better known as Chef Shac. Born in South Florida and the oldest of 11 total siblings, she is an entrepreneur at heart with multiple brands under her Chef Shac LLC umbrella. Before earning 2 degrees from culinary school, she tried her hand at barbering school and midwifery after a challenging pregnancy. But it was food and how to use it to lift spirits and create opportunity for others that turned out to be her true passion. And it didn't hurt that her unique blend of Southern, soul, and Bahamian influences has proven to be a winning recipe. In 2017, she defeated 3 other chefs on Food Network's popular show Chopped. Even with that success, however, the mom of 3 still struggles to work out the best way to successfully monetize her talents, experience, and heart for the community. Focused primarily on catering and events, her business has been devastated by the COVID-19 pandemic, and her professional future remains uncertain. But she has a smile that you can hear and faith that God still has big plans for her life. We started with talking about her early years.
I shouldn't probably even remember this because I was about 3, but we lived in Gary, Indiana, like on the edge of Chicago. And my stepdad at the time was, he trained horses. He broke horses for polo. So, So I've lived in Gary, Indiana, Birmingham, Alabama. I was there for 14 years. Back and forth in and out of Tallahassee, Mobile, Alabama, Huntsville, Alabama. I've been a lot of a lot of places.
So what is the place that you would call your hometown then? When people ask where you're from, where do you say?
Delray.
Okay.
Delray Beach is definitely my hometown. That's where my roots are, I guess. My grandparents, everyone's, has put their roots down there. My mom actually lives in Atlanta, but I would say Delray Beach.
Okay. And what was life like there? Describe what your childhood in those early years down in South Florida was like.
Oh, wow. So I remember being at my grandparents' house, and they lived in, they call it Jefferson Manor, and it was one of the, upper level African-American neighborhoods in its time.
Okay.
And I remember fruit trees, climbing trees and playing football in the street with the boys.
So what is a climbing tree exactly?
Climbing trees, mango trees, orange trees.
Anything you can get up in.
Anything
right?
we could get up in and shake it to get the fruit off. That's
okay. So that was the goal, right?
That's always the goal, to get the fruit. We got to get to the fruit. So yes, I remember a lot of a fruit and fresh food being, a part of my youth. So
Right.
yeah. But my grandfather, very Archie Bunkerish in his grumpiness, I should say.
Right.
He Bahamian man. It was very interesting. So he's a huge part of my life. But me and my mom lived with my grandmother for a little bit. My grandparents, and then we moved ourselves a couple different places. But it was where my family was. So it was everything family. It was everything. I feel like, it's very interesting in that, you have this kind of family atmosphere, but then it was all the characters in the neighborhood, that everyone, laughed at or knew their story. And so it was, it was colorful. At the end of the day, it was definitely colorful.
So kind of close-knit, everybody, good community to grow up in?
Absolutely. Great community to grow up in.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm interested a little bit when you said that, kind of an upper level economically African-American community, because you're, down in that area, that's about as swanky as it gets, right? Boca, there's a lot of money down there.
There's a lot of money down there. And I won't say that we had a lot of it. We didn't have a lot of it. But I guess in its time, and when I say in its time, when my grandparents owned their home, got their home, it was that neighborhood. It was the neighborhood to try to get in if you were African American and kind of coming up. And my grandfather, my great grandfather, owned a movie theater, a restaurant, a gas station. So we had, we owned things. The family owned things in the city, and so they weren't, desolate. But it was good. It was.
We talked about your family some. Tell me about your parents.
My parents.
Tell me their story.
My mom was a single mom for most of my life. And me and her were really close, I guess, in age. She was 18 when she had me. My father, both are from Delray Beach. And he wasn't in my life consistently. He was kind of in and out. But, of course, I knew who he was. I would visit his parents and his mom's house and hang out over there. But he was I felt like he was like a lifelong student because he left to go to college and I was like born,
right? And
then he pretty much stayed away. He pretty much stayed. And then when my mom came to college when I was about 8 or 9, he was still here. So he had been here like off and on my whole life. And he didn't graduate from college until I came for college.
That's a long time. So that is the definition of a lifelong student.
He's a lifelong student. Yeah. So, but he, in the South Florida women's book, I guess he was handsome. And, so the ladies love him. And, that's kind of how it goes. He's very political. He's kind of into, he loves politics. And he was at FAMU, for many years. He went to college here, was student government president at FAMU for a number of years. And, got a lot of great things accomplished at FAMU, mentored a lot of young people. And I wish I had that experience with him. However, he was not that to me, but it was what he felt like, I guess, that he needed, the praise of others as opposed to his family.
And so your mom, you mentioned that you came up here with your mom. So your mom went to FAMU as well, right?
Yes. My mom came to FAMU. She was pretty diligent in her path. She came, did her 4 years and she left and started her actual life, you know? Right. So, but
the more traditional path.
She took the more traditional path, of course, untraditional in that she was already a mom. And I remember living in Polkinghorne Village before it, was torn down and all that. And all the furniture was orange and green and everything was orange and green. The walls, everything was orange and green. But it was what they called their family housing. Yeah. So families lived there. And, I have people in my life right now who we met in Polkinghorne Village that are still, I call my aunties and my friends, Yeah. So it was fun, it was fun living in Polkinghorne. I didn't realize until I went to school that I was poor, that I had kind of lost that, I don't know, status, I guess you would say, that I had in South Florida, living with my grandparents. I mean, my mom had her own home as well, but we never went to Kmart or any, we didn't shop in places like that for clothing. Right. And so when I came here, so my mom initially came her first semester by herself. She brought us the second semester. So It's me and my brother right under me. And she was, of course, hesitant. It was hard, to bring your kids into that kind of situation. And I remember I had gained some weight and I wanted new clothes. And she was just like, I don't have it, I don't have it. And she had a learner's credit card. And she came to the store, even after, asking my dad, and he didn't have it. And she was like, okay, this is it, and she maxes out her learner's credit card for me to get some cute clothes for school.
Right.
And I see her giving away my beautiful, Polly Flinders and all these different dresses away to my friends because I had gained too much weight and I couldn't wear them anymore. So she was like, this is it. And it was just,
so you're trading the good stuff for the less expensive stuff.
I became I don't know, I was poor. I didn't know,
So she was living the life of a student, right?
She was living the life of a student, a student. And I think that's when I kind of began my acquaintance with poverty, because it was, I didn't know it, I didn't know it before that. And then going through these 4 years with my mom and caring for my brother, and then while she was here, she got pregnant with my third, it was her third child, my second brother. But, just helping to care for them and support her through her challenge of trying to make our lives better, being able to provide. She had been married, had been abused in her first marriage, not by my dad. She had never married my dad. It was someone else. And then deciding that she was going to go to college and quitting her job, selling her house. It was just this whole to do this thing that she felt would make our lives, even better. She didn't have to depend on anyone else. Right. She wouldn't have to.
So what happened after she graduated? You all moved back down?
We moved back down to South Florida, still living with my grandparents, kind of hopping around, to place. I think in high school, I ended up going to 4 different high schools because we moved a lot. It was... because again, even though she had that degree, it still was hard, and I think a lot of people don't always realize that just because you get the degree doesn't mean, you're going to blow up, and you're going to have all this money.
Yeah, for sure.
And so she worked in social services for a while and did some substitute teaching and now is now a teacher.
When she came up here and moved back, you didn't go back to that life of having more money. You kind of continued the life of your mom finding jobs that didn't pay as much because
Yeah.
social work definitely is not a super high paying job.
It does not pay well.
Right. So it kind of was a new phase of your life. It continued from then on.
Yes.
Right?
I felt like I remember her telling me she was pregnant with my second brother and feeling that things were going to change, as far as me getting what I wanted when I wanted, because I guess I was spoiled, I wouldn't say a brat spoiled, but I was spoiled.
Yeah.
And when he came, he's so cute, but I was like, oh, he's cute. And I thought he was a Cabbage Patch. I was like, this is take him back, to the store. I just remember Cabbage Patch Kids be coming up and you can put them back, they can't,
right.
So that when I realized that he wasn't going anywhere, it became, kind of real like this, and I started feeling it, I think, immediately that next Christmas, when everything wasn't mine. And
right.
And then, I hadn't had another Christmas like like that, like my previous Christmases.
Right.
So I had to grow up. I had to grow up, and I had to take some responsibility.
Yeah. Well, there are more children on the way as far as adding to your siblings, right? Because you have 11 siblings.
Yes.
When your family was blended, right? So, so growing up as the oldest, I guess you were a little older, but even at 16, when your families were blended, did you take on some of that responsibility? Did you help your mom with all the kids?
Absolutely. It did not change.
Yeah.
It did not change much.
Yeah.
It was just a few more kids added to the pot, which was fine, no problem. I think I've always just had that nurturing spirit anyway. And maybe it was because of having, that responsibility kind of early. And I don't despise it in any way. I was happy to be that person for my mom. I don't, people are always like, oh, trauma. I was like, I didn't see it as trauma. My mom was committed to doing something to better our family. And I was in a position to help her when no one else would,
right,
and no one else could. So I did that, I feel like I did that. And so, and I always felt like when you see me and my mom, we look like sisters. We don't look like mom and daughter. So people always thought that because she always looked so young. So they would just be like, oh, is that your little sister? Oh, she's so cute. You're like, what? No. She's like, that's my daughter.
Yeah.
So we just had that kind of relationship. She was always, honest with me. And I probably had some grown up conversations that many, young folks, 12 and so didn't have to deal with. But it was necessary. Right. I feel like it was necessary. And when I see the success of my brothers and my siblings, I feel I can take some of that, with pride. And when they say it, you were like our second mom, you helped us and, through discipline and, these things helped me to become who I am as a great father. And, because neither of them knew that, neither of my brothers after me knew that. Right. Kind of father. And then of course with my stepfather coming in and again reinforcing that strong father figure was good. Yeah.
So how did you feel about that? Did you get to balance? I know that you did it with a loving heart because you loved your siblings, you loved your mom. You embraced that role to a certain degree. Sure. But that also means you had to give up being a kid part of that time. So I mean, how did you balance that? Were there still times where you could go out with your girlfriends and be a kid and have fun? And did you get any of that?
A little. I got a little of that. I of course, high school, probably a little bit more. I'm very private, I guess, anyway, and then I wouldn't say I had a whole bunch of friends, but I feel like I had the valued friends. So I didn't have like all the extra, just folks who just want to be around to be around, but people who I could really call a friend.
Sure.
And so...
not like Facebook friends.
Right,
like real friends,
not the face, right. I had real friends.
Yeah.
And And of course, being with the kids was a balance for me too. We all had to balance. I was in high school. It was my responsibility to get the kids out. My mom was already on her way to work and had taken the smaller kids. So it was just, we all just had our piece, that we had to kind of handle. And growing up and going through, your puberty and becoming a young adult and myself, becoming a mom young and marrying young. I married at 18. So, I feel like I went from one house to another house. I went from being their mom, second mom, I should say. My mom would kill me for saying that. Their second mom, they're going on.
Just be real clear
mom.
about that.
Yeah,
second
mom. She was mom, and she was a
right.
nurturing mom, and she was a wonderful mom. And like I said, I think it's different when you're explained why, why this needs to happen and why we have to be a team in making these things happen. Right. And so, and she wasn't short on that. She made sure that I understood why, and it was hard because my father was here. It wasn't, especially when we were in Tallahassee and me having to be so young, caring for my siblings, leaving Pork and Horn, going into, I think we ended up staying in, the last place we lived here was Joe Louis Street, the projects at Joe Louis Street and public housing. And, just being in that environment, but it was a great community environment because in that if we didn't have something, someone else, in the neighborhood may. And so, it was those kinds of times I think that helped make me who I am.
Yeah. Well, when you were in high school, were there any activities you were involved in, or what did you enjoy doing? Yeah,
I played basketball. I was a basketball girl. Yeah. I did a little bit of track, shot. I wasn't much of a runner per se, but I did like shot put and that kind of stuff. And but basketball was my thing. I really thought I was gonna be in the WNBA.
Really?
And it actually so the WNBA kind of came into existence as I was graduating from high school. I graduated in 92. And I remember in one of my last games, it came in a little bit before I graduated from high school. I'll say that back. At one of the last games, and one of the players, heavier than me, fell on my leg and messed up my kney. And that was it. Yeah.
Well, that's too bad.
That was it. But I coached my kids in basketball, I did what I could.
Yeah.
I did what I could.
Well, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
So after you graduated from high school, you came up to Tallahassee to attend FAMU.
Yeah.
And so what was that transition like, coming back and already being familiar with it, but this time as a student? How did that all feel?
I was excited. We actually fought really hard to get me in FAMU. I didn't really want to have to use my dad's pool, but ended up having to. But my grades weren't so great, and even though I was a good student and I was in upper level classes, I didn't perform well in my last semesters of school, and so I didn't come right on. I had to come I was supposed to come in the summer.
Okay.
And I missed something, I don't know, some form or something. Anyway, I'm packing to come in the fall because I didn't realize I was supposed to have been here 2 months before. And so I've gotten here and they're like, you don't have anything. You were accepted, but you were supposed to come in the summer and you didn't come, and having to, get in to see Dr. Flamer. I remember Dr. Flamer. He was a lifesaver, and try to, use that connection to try to get in, to get in school. And they did. They allowed me to get in, and I got I had to go through some remedial things in the beginning to kind of get my GPA up. It was that kind of thing. But
and that's what the summer program is usually for, right? To help you get started on the right foot and all that.
Right. Well, I missed all that. I don't know how we did. Just it's a lot going on. There's a lot in the world, so we just missed that. But I got here and. I was a part of the FAMU Gospel Choir, and that was amazing to be a part of that group and get to do something that I love to do, and or used to love to do. I should
Yeah, we
say.
didn't talk about that, but you said you spent a lot of time in the church, so singing was a big part of that?
Singing was a huge part of that.
Yeah.
That was my job. That was my job. So, yeah, being a part of a choir and realizing that my voice was not as amazing as I thought.
College will do that to you, right?
Getting to college and finding like, oh my God, there's some amazing singers here. So, so that was great. And I met my husband in that process. He wasn't in the choir, but he was roommates with someone in the choir. Okay. And so we met, and of course I'm a good Christian girl, and so it's like, we can't be intimate, you can't do all these things, and so I remember, everyone always was like, you guys, we just want to be like you, you guys are such a cute couple, such a sweet couple, and he's amazing. He's a great dad. I was like, listen, if you don't marry me or have a plan to marry me, then we're gonna have to break up because I can't have sex with you.
Right, yeah.
And so, and of course, we're young, and that part was, right there. And so he was like, okay, well, I can't marry you. I got a 6-year plan. I can't marry you yet. But so I was like, okay, well, find me in 6 years. If this is what's going to have to be.
Pretty clear.
Yeah. And so I remember having like the worst probably 2 weeks of my life. Of us being broken up, and my friends as well. Everyone's like in vigil in my dorm. I stayed in McGuinn, and everyone's in vigil like, oh my God, you guys broke up. Like
they have candles lit and stuff, the whole thing.
So sad. It made me more sad. I was like, gosh, I'm supposed to be supporting me. What's going on? Like I'm encouraging you. Like I need you. So I was like, I was so miserable, and we ended up having a different discussion, and kind of getting deeper into the whys in our relationship, and how we could make it work. Even though I was trying to hold to my beliefs. And of course he was as well, because his family were pastors, and so he kind of understood. And eventually we kind of undercover got married, and then I got pregnant with my daughter, and we had a full-on wedding. But needless to say, that was only within months of us being together.
You meet someone, you fall in love, you get married, you have a child right away.
Yeah.
And so how does that impact you at school? What does that do to your plan for your education?
Well, I wasn't doing too good in school, so I ended up letting school go and letting him finish because he was closer to finishing anyway. And so that was kind of our plan. And he wanted me to be at home anyway. He was that, he grown up in that kind of house where mom was home and cooked, and, dad went out and, conquered the world or whatever. And so we did that for a while. I have 3 children, and I had them. So we made a plan that I would stay home while he finished, and then we would kind of compromise in the care of the kids, you know. And so he worked and went to school, and then I was, I felt I was losing myself, because no one started. They went to a point where they weren't using my name. I was Jeffrey's wife. I was not Shacafrica, or, my family calls me Calf. Everyone else calls me Shac. Don't ever use that, people. If I see you, I'm Shac, okay? But
so Calf is the family name.
Calf is my family name.
All right, well, it's out there now.
I
so.
I know. And so, and close friends say that.
Okay.
So, but anyway, we made an agreement, and I wanted to kind of have my own thing because I wasn't, in college. And So I went to barbering school, and we were trying to work it out to where he would come home, and then I would go to Lively.
Okay.
And I lived like right a block away from Lively, so I would walk through the path to get to school, like when he got home, and it was kind of crazy. And so I ended up having to drop out of barbering school. So I'm a barber school dropout. Wah, wah.
Well, the song, when I saw that, I mean, the song Beauty School Dropout's the first thing that popped into my head. But,
exactly. And Grease is one of my favorite favorite movies.
Yeah.
So,
But I mean, I don't know you well, but I know you in the community and see you on social media. And every time I see you, you've got a new interesting hairdo. And so I know that that's part of you, so I know you must still have an interest in that.
Yeah,
right?
I love having my hair done. In some interesting way.
Yeah. So when barbering school didn't work out, then what was the next step after that?
Well, I had such a traumatic birth that I started kind of delving into more natural births and
So with your third child, or
no, after my first, so my second.
Okay.
My second. And so I had started kind of getting involved with childbirthing.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting a job at the birthing center. And then in the process, I was learning Lamaze and the Bradley method, which is a husband-led method of childbirthing. And then I was in doula training. Like, I was in it.
I saw the list. You pretty much had everything covered.
So, and I did breastfeeding, and I had picked up like a little part-time job at the health department. I was like a gynecological assistant there. So, I was just in it, like in that medical nursing kind of thing. Again, that nurturing part of me. And so I wanted to get into birthing after that. So I would work overnight because most babies are birth.
Of course, the most inconvenient times. Right.
As soon as you want to rest, they're like, "Yeah, I'm ready." So I would work overnight. So they would call, to let you know it was a birth, and you go in, and so that was part of my life. I would go and do that, and then when my husband was finished with school, we had made an agreement that, I was going to go to nurse midwifery school. He had got a job offer in Birmingham, Alabama, and because I had all my kids here in Tallahassee. And my oldest was probably about 3 or 4 by now, and when we were leaving. And I was like, I want to go to nurse midwifery school. So we got to Birmingham and, got the kids settled a few months in. And I'm ready to go to midwifery school. And I submit my paperwork, and they're like, "Ma'am, the school is not accepting any new students because I guess the school wasn't doing well or whatever, but they ended the program." And it was devastating for me.
Yeah. Because
that's kind of, what we had been kind of hoping to do. And it was my turn, to kind of pursue my dreams and that kind of thing. And so it left me in a crazy way because I wanted to do something. I wanted to have my own thing. I appreciated being a mom, but I wanted my own thing in the world.
Right.
And so they encouraged me to go to culinary school. My ex-husband encouraged me, like, "Honey, you can do this. You cook for everyone." Because I was the one, for the family. I cooked for Thanksgiving, and I've been cooking my whole life. So
I was going to ask, you probably cooked a lot for your siblings, right?
Oh yeah. And that's kind of where my philosophy too around, like, if you make something and it's bad, you eat it. You're just going to eat it that time,
Right.
And then the next time you know better, right? You know to do better. And I had to learn like that, because I had a lot of, mishaps in the kitchen. But, we had to eat because we didn't have a lot of food. So you ate it and you did better the next time.
That's
So,
right.
yeah. So that's one of my little kitchen philosophies. But yeah, he encouraged me to go. And there were those commercials, the culinary school commercials, and they show you the chefs on the cruise ships and all this stuff, and you're thinking you're going to go away, you're going to make, thousands of dollars.
Right.
And he was like, honey, you can do this, just try. And I'm like, I can't do that. I can't be a chef. I can, I cook at home. I'm a home cook. I cook for my family. And he was like, no, you can do it. And he was working for the gas company in Alabama, and still does. And he ended up having the chef, their executive chef for the gas company, write me a letter of recommendation to go to culinary school. And that's when my culinary
That's awesome. Yeah.
journey began.
Okay. When you so you went to school, right? And you got in and you graduated and you got 2 degrees, right?
I got 2 degrees.
And what were those in?
Pastry and confectionery and culinary arts.
Right. Okay. So what was your goal then? What did you do after you graduated, and what were your food goals at that point?
My food goals.
I mean, what kind of job did you want to get?
Yeah. So I wanted to have a upscale soul food restaurant. That was my goal. I mean, that's what I talked about. While I was in school, I felt like it was a way to take the food that we, ate on Sunday, and that comfort and that soulfulness, and put it into a white tablecloth fine dining establishment. And so I created recipes that were like that.
Had you seen a restaurant like that before?
Never.
Okay.
Had never seen it, but I just working while I was in culinary school, I worked in the school's restaurant, and as a server actually, and I was able to kind of see some things, and having the opportunity to, while in culinary school, to our senior year, I guess, I don't know, senior semester, we were able to work out of that kitchen, creating our own food. And so my senior meal was like this lamb over some kind of black-eyed pea hummus. I don't even know. It was some crazy, just something like infused with just all this Southern goodness and the soulfulness that I had grown up with. And I remember people coming and eating and being like, this is so good. Like, oh my God, this is so good. And I was like, this is soul food. Right. At the end of the day, it's soul food. If you look at, you had black-eyed peas and, infused with something, and then you had this, and they were like, you're absolutely right. This is really soul food, just upscale, done up. And so I really wanted to capture that, capture the beauty of the South, and not just, when people say that, or when they hear you say that, they think, oh, fried chicken, da, 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 da. And I don't have any problem with that. I don't despise those things at all.
Right.
However, there's so much other that is beautiful, so many other things that are beautiful in the way of Southern culture and soul food. So those two are two different things, but are easily combined, especially for African American people. They kind of go hand in hand. And so, I wanted to bring out that the beauty of the South was grown in the South. And so that's part of my story going into food.
Right.
Yeah.
So what happened with you opening that kind of restaurant?
As I worked in the industry and started, participating more, I got more into catering because I was volunteering during culinary school at a lot of country clubs and things like that. And so my actual first job after completing my first degree was being the executive chef of a swim and tennis clubs, like a little country club. It was great. But I definitely felt like I was not qualified to do this job. But it still fed into my like my desire to do it, my love for it and my
Right.
love for seeing people eat. I feel like I'm a voyeur when it comes to food. I love watching people eat, and especially my own food. And I'm like, oh yes, this is, and their experiences and their facial
So you're peeking out
expressions.
from the kitchen to see
Oh yeah,
people
or
eat.
I'm out there. I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
it's good.
You're not even trying to hide about it,
No,
right?
I'm
You're
like,
just
it's great, it's good. So I was like, yeah, I love that, and or hearing people say things. But I think because when before me and my husband divorced, I had a little catering business, and I remember doing an event for one of his friends. It was his friend worked with like the FBI and tech or something, and he invited all his friends to a breakfast, and it was like my first like full on catering job with money,
Yeah.
that I asked for, that kind of thing. And so I went all out. I made watermelon swans, and bought new equipment, and I just went all out. And I remember this guy came in, and I was back in the back doing something, getting ready to replenish something, and he comes in, and he was all like just face all frowned up. He's like, who did this? Who did this? He's walking through the building. And I was like, oh God, like he, is kind of scary. Like, I was a little worried. And I said, well, me? And he was like, thank you. He was like, thank you so much. He said, when I came in here, I was so low. I just was so heavy.
Yeah.
He said, but I saw this food and how beautifully it's presented. And it just lifted my spirit. And that did something to me.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And so I've only probably had maybe in my career, 20 plus years of doing this now. I probably have had maybe 5 or 6 of those kinds of experiences, but they're enough to encourage me to keep going, right?
This episode is sponsored by Locally Loved Tallahassee, formerly Socially Loved. I'm excited to have a partner that has the same general goals of sharing great local stories and can benefit from reaching our audience. I encourage you to be part of their new Facebook group, Locally Loved Tallahassee, focused on celebrating local people and places. Join the thousands, including me, who are already on board and sharing stories about what makes Tallahassee so special. So we're working our way up to your time on Chopped in 2017.
Okay,
But so
wow.
in between there, was that an easy time for you? Did you find success, or what was that time like?
So I was divorced between that time. So graduated from school, I got divorced, and I was broke. I lost my job, and I was homeless, and I was living in my car. And my husband, had the kids. He had the kids with him, and it was a really crazy time. And I was trying to find work and trying to, stay close to my kids. I didn't want to have to leave them. I didn't want to have to leave the area. And I remember just kind of getting so low. I was catering from my hotel room. And I was across the street from, it was like a medical center or whatever. Like, it was across the field. And I was catering for them.
Right.
And my hotel room was on the same side as their offices. And I was terrified. I was cooking in my, hotel, which is a no-no. And I'm trying to pack it up, and put it in the car, and then get over to them. And I'm seeing people like walking in and out, and I'm like, oh God, please don't let them see me. And I just, it was just those kinds of situations, trying to make a name for yourself, trying to, let people know who you are. Hopefully you get that big break, and, and everything is great, and I again, it was so bad. I wasn't, I think went into like a recession in there or something. I don't even know, but the economy was bad. And it was like pharmacies weren't really, pharmaceutical companies weren't hiring chefs. They were, really taking like the cheapest way they could. And they actually had stopped ordering food for the doctors. It was just a whole thing there for a while. And it just devastated me. And I ended up having to leave. And I came and stayed with a friend in Huntsville. That's how I got to Huntsville. I stayed with her for a while. And then we ended up, my father bought me a one-way ticket to Tallahassee to care for my grandmother. And I didn't think of it right then. And he didn't tell me it was for my grandmother because my uncle had died. And he was like, yeah, I'm getting you a ticket so you can come to your uncle's funeral. And I'm like, okay, not realizing I only have a one-way. And so in the meantime, I get here and the conversation is, well, you don't have anything going on, So I was thinking maybe you could take care of your grandmother, that kind of thing. And I had only packed for like 5 days.
Yeah.
And I ended up being in Tallahassee for almost a year before I ever got back to my clothes.
Wow.
I stayed with my grandmother, cared for her till she got well. But in the process, I ended up getting a job at FAMU, and I was the executive chef at FAMU for 3 years.
Wow.
And
so I can't imagine that's an easy job to get. So how did that happen?
No, it wasn't an easy job to get. It was hard to get in. But the interesting thing was I had been praying and I was like, God, if this is my job, then, just please open, create an opportunity or whatever. And so I went, my aunt was like a server for Sodexo, who was the hospitality company at FAMU. And she was like, they're going to do this big job fair. So just come over, and try and see if you can get in. And so I went to fill out the application, done all that. And I was leaving. And just as I was leaving, I see the regional manager and the GM of FAMU. And they were on like one side of the road and I was on the other. And I was like, oh, well, I guess can't talk to them because they're way over there. I can't introduce myself. And I'm saying this in my head and I'm kind of like, well, God, if they come this way, then I'll say, I'll go and I'll talk to them. And sure enough, it was like they turned right back around and they're coming over into my direction. And I'm like, oh, God. And so, but that's what I said. I was like, I gotta honor what I said. So I go up and I'm like, hello, my name is Shacafrica Simmons. And I'm giving them a whole spiel. And I said, I want to work for you. I'm a chef. I've worked, I was giving them my whole spiel in the few seconds that I had. And I remember the general manager was like, the regional manager was like, what would you do if you had a belligerent employee who continued to fight or whatever, get into altercations or whatever? And so I just gave them my spiel. I was like, listen, I'm very calm. I try not to get too worked up.
Right.
Initially, I would, coach them with maybe a written warning. And then after that, they would be dismissed. They'd be fired. And on the spot, he was like, you got the job.
Wow. I guess you said the right thing.
That's how I got the job. So that gave me my in into FAMU and into the culinary industry here. And yeah, it's been an interesting ride being a part of the Tallahassee community.
In 2017, you were chosen to compete on the Food Network show Chopped, which is super popular. I love that show. So how did you get selected for that? How did you get on their radar to be on the show?
Oh gosh, I had been trying to get on their radar for a while, but I worked with Whole Child Leon with Courtney Atkins, and Courtney actually is friends with Linda Lee, who's from the executive producer, and she's from Tallahassee. And they don't really pay attention to Tallahassee much in the way of food. We're not, a foodie city per se.
Right.
So it was kind of hard to kind of get her attention, but Whole Child Leon does this fundraiser. They had been doing this fundraiser, Chop Junior, and I was one of the judges, and Linda was one of the judges, and Linda's wife, Pamela Nelson, was one of the judges, and Art Smith. That was the first year. And I got an opportunity to just talk to her briefly. I wasn't trying to pitch for Chopped. I just, we just talked in general. And she asked Courtney, hey, let me see some more of her stuff, and she thought I was adorable.
That helps, right?
So she gave me an opportunity. I mean, I still had to go through the process, of course, of the application and submitting recipes and all that stuff. But it did help to have her, kind of paying a little bit of attention and being able to get some attention on me.
Right. So what was the experience like for you?
It was exciting. I had gone through the interview, the initial interview, and everyone was, very nice or whatever. And then they came to Tallahassee and they were recording me. I was working in Quincy for AMI Kids. I was a culinary instructor there for their after school program. And they came and they recorded, watched us cook, watched me work with the kids and everything. And then they were like, wow, at first we didn't know why it was so important to talk to you, to have you on the show. But after seeing you, and talking to you, now we know why it was important for us to come to Tallahassee. I mean, they were in tears. Right. I was in tears.
Oh, wow.
It was awesome. So, and much of the story that we're talking, sharing right now is what they were able to hear. And they, it touched their heart. And that's how we kept moving forward. But on the show, it was crazy. I think I got to that night before and I was like, why in the heck did I think I could go on Chop? Like, why in the world did I think
the reality of the pressure started setting in?
Oh, right? God, I was having a panic attack. I remember I was sitting in Penn Station and I was starting to break down. Like, it was like a night or so before and I was breaking down. Yeah. I was just like, at home is way easier to tell you what you should and shouldn't do.
Right.
And I know, I'm not a fast cook. I'm not that one who goes in and I'm creating these, ultimate masterpieces in 20 minutes. It takes me hours, it takes
but you're not going to have hours on the show.
Right? Right. So, I'm starting to feel that, the nervousness and just the weight of it, you know. But it's the moments that I had met in many parts of my life. I had been in those moments where I didn't think I was good enough. And then I did it. And then I was like, I am. I am good enough. And sometimes, in our lives, we just have to push forward, even if we're afraid. You have to use it. It's like energy. You have to use that fear to kind of thrust you forward instead of allowing it to push you back.
Right.
Even when you're, getting in these places of adversity, if things aren't working, you can't give up. You take your time, you lick your wound if you need to, and then you get up. And then you pivot. You do what you got. I always say I'm like water. If I can't go forward, I'm going to go to the side. If I can't go to the side, whatever way, whatever corner, nook and cranny that you open up,
right,
I'm going to try to get through it.
Yeah.
And pull some more people with me if I can.
Yeah. So, spoiler alert, if somebody's going to go look it up, you win.
I win.
Which is pretty amazing. So, At some point in the show, I imagine as you get through each round, there's some confidence building, right?
Yeah.
And so at some point, did you think, hey, I can win this thing?
You know what? My strategy for going on Chop was, for one, don't get cut in the first round. That was first.
Right. You don't want that walk of shame,
if nothing
right?
else, if nothing else, you can go away
Right.
and say, at least I didn't get cut first, though.
That's
You
right.
know? Second was, I had talked to Art Smith, because Art Smith has one chopped a couple of times. And I called him, and I was like, Art, what did you do? Like, how did you get ready? And he said, I did what I know how to do. Mm-hmm. He said, it's going to be a lot of impressive stuff in there. If you don't know how to use it, don't try. He was like, stay true and authentic to who you are.
Right.
And that kept ringing in my head. Be authentic. Be authentic. And when I went in that chop kitchen with everything you could think of at your disposal, I own a micro business. You know what I mean? So I was like, I don't have an ice cream machine. I don't have all these things. I have a food processor. I have a blender, and if you could watch the show, those are the two things that I focus with. The two things I use, right? So, but that was the thing that kind of just kept ringing in my head. And then I was on again. So I went back to Chop in January.
Okay, I didn't know that.
This year. Mm-hmm, and it aired in May.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And how'd you do on that one?
I didn't win this time. But I did.
Did you get past the first round?
I did get past the first round. I did. I got past the first round. It was a beat the judge. So it was a little different.
Sure.
It was a little different, yeah.
Yeah. So the first time after you won and you come back from New York and you've won, how long did you have to keep it secret from everybody?
3 months.
Did you tell anybody?
I will never say that.
There's a statute of limitations. You can't get in trouble now. But okay, so I'm going to take that. Knew. Maybe someone extremely trusted may have known.
Right. People knew. They just, they knew. And I kind of was just like.
Without you having to say it. Right. Yeah.
Like.
Making a little eye.
Yeah. It's this side, not that side.
Yeah. Right.
No, that's a $750,000 penalty, man.
Is there really?
Yeah.
You don't
like that.
Which is more than 10,000.
Right.
So
the 10,000, they would have taken all of that and more. Huh?
Yeah. So they don't want that. All right. Well, congratulations. That's pretty awesome to have done that.
Thank you.
So you come back to town. Mm-hmm. You get a lot of accolades. You get a key to the city.
Yeah.
You're on magazine covers.
Yeah.
You're kind of riding high on this, and you probably have great expectations that this is going to launch into some awesome stuff.
Yeah.
So tell me about those next really 2-3 years. What did it look like when you came back?
So one thing Art said to me before I went on the show as well was, don't go thinking you're going to become like some millionaire. Mm-hmm. You still got to put in work. And in my mind, I'm like, I hear you. But this is big, there's not very many Black women chefs who are on there, let alone, win.
Right.
So, when I won, I was like, yes, this is, I was just thinking it was going to make things a heck of a lot easier. And I was so very wrong. I still wasn't valued in a certain way. Like, I know the community, many in the community love me and support me, and I'm so grateful for that. But it was, I still struggle. I still had a very serious struggle, still dealt with and deal with poverty, because I am an entrepreneur, and so when money isn't flowing, whether it's from, right after Chopped or today, I'm always in that, feast or famine situation, where it could easily, I could easily be, devastated. But I really thought that being the winner of Chopped would afford me more, I guess, that I don't think I've had access to. Like, being an African American woman in the city and having won Chopped. I won Chopped, and I think I was like on the 4th page of the paper. I was inside the paper. Mm-hmm. But some guy was just on MasterChef. He wasn't the winner. He just was on it. And he was on the cover. Right. It was the same day. We released the same day. Or a few days. And I was just like, wow. Like it kind of, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love William, but it just those kinds of things are real.
Right.
I see them all the time. It doesn't, because I still have to prove myself. I still have to prove that I'm worthy of being in the space, of carrying the title of Chop Champion, or that I'm able to be this chef. People ask me, are you a real chef? And it's like, yes, I have the loans and everything to prove it. Like the bills.
Right.
Yes.
As opposed to what? I mean,
I don't know. Like, because people will say oh, you're the cook. And I'm to the point now where, don't get me wrong, I'm not arrogant. But
you earn the title chef.
I earned the title of chef. Yeah. My mom cooks, and
Yeah.
people who love cooking and they haven't done the due diligence of going to culinary school, or even if they didn't choose to go to culinary school, but have committed themselves to the process of learning, even if they're what they call a working chef, or they worked into the title. I've done all those things. And so you wouldn't walk in your doctor's office and call them, Bill
Joe.
or Joe or whatever. Right. You
Right.
wouldn't. You say Dr. Joe or
There's
Dr.
a respect
whoever. Right.
earned for the title.
So I feel $80,000 plus dollars in debt. I feel like you got to call me a chef.
So do you think as an African-American woman that people are more reluctant to give you that respect and that title than if you were a white man or something different?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's why it's so important for me to be in these spaces, like going back to Chopped. I don't want to be that chef who's running after these little titles or whatever. I think I proved enough going to Chopped, winning, going again, and doing really well.
Yeah.
But it's still about representation. It was for me, when I went to culinary school, I was so afraid. I had never seen anyone that looked like me in that kind of a position. And it was that one person, my one culinary instructor, Denny Streeter, who let me know, like just seeing her with walk through those halls with confidence, even among her white counterparts, mostly white males.
But you saw what you could be.
But I saw what I could be in her. So right now I mentor about 15 young chefs who are at different levels in their career. And one actually has gone on to win Chopped, and she didn't go to culinary school. She worked her way up, and it was committed to the process. And so that's what I always say. I create stars, because I have so many that are doing so well. But I want to be that. Those people who go on and they forget that it's somebody behind you who needs you. They need to know that they can do it just like you did.
Yeah, well, that's an awesome legacy. That's something to be really proud of.
Thank you.
Yeah. I saw an article in the Democrat that when you were featured as one of the, very highly impacted businesses from COVID, restaurants have been some of the hardest hit, but at least restaurants have the ability, most of them, to do curbside pickup. There have been collaborations, ways to generate income. But as a caterer and as a personal chef or, doing special events, what did that do to your business?
It devastated my business. I mean, I don't even know another way to say it. We're a micro business struggling already, and then early in the year is slow for us because we've just come off of Christmas and the holiday. And so we've kind of had that boom, and then we kind of had those few months of lean. That's what I call them.
Right.
And so January and February are those months for us. And so then we started feeling the effects of COVID in February because it was talk about it. There was some chatter And so some of our like corporate, more like our larger clients were like, oh, we don't know, if we're going to book that event, or we're going to, we're going to hold out a little bit. And many held out, and we had, over $45,000 on the table, that disappeared. We were waiting. It was crazy because I had moved out of my apartment, and I was actually staying with a friend, because we were like, well, these months, by the time February, March, we'll have, the money, and then we'll move, to the new spot. And it was like all of that went away. All of those opportunities to come up, a little bit and kind of reestablish were kind of up in the air, and they still are to this very day. I'm technically homeless. So it's been very hard, and I haven't gotten the PPPs and the EIDL loans and all that stuff. I didn't qualify for one of the local, something the city did. I didn't qualify for that because I didn't have a light bill in my name, and it was just stuff, just little things that are very discouraging, that can devastate you. And for a long time, I wasn't getting unemployment either. I feel like I have enough bright moments to just keep pushing for the one, for the one that's gonna set me up. And I've tried to take this opportunity to never be in this position again. So, to position myself where I have what I need, in a pandemic or a bad economy or whatever.
You mean the ability to set something aside, you mean?
Yeah. And just to be in a position where I'm not impacted so harshly by things like this, and by the turns of life, that I'll have enough money or just things in place to where I'm stable, and my family can be, stable as well. I still have 3 children. They're grown, but I do.
Well, that's a good. I do want to talk about that. I want you to have an opportunity to tell us about your 3 children, because I'm sure there's some motherly pride there involved. So so please tell me about your 3 kids.
So my oldest daughter is Janishua. We call her Kiki. She's amazing. She's a nurturer like mom. Just a beautiful, artistic, creative child. Loves children, has worked with children quite a bit. Now she builds parts for the country, for the army or whatever. I don't know. She just, it's all secrets. I ain't gonna say nothing. Yeah. But she does that kind of thing. And then my youngest daughter, second child, Jada, is again artistic. She paints, she builds sets, and she actually attended TCC for theater. And my son, and did I tell those ages? So my oldest daughter is 26.
Okay.
My youngest daughter, Jada, is 25. And my son is 23. And my son actually followed in the footsteps of the family and went to FAMU. And he graduated from FAMU last year with a degree in political science.
Okay. And
he's attending American University now in DC. He's a Wrangle Scholar. So he...
and what's his name?
His name is Jeffrey.
Jeffrey, okay.
Mm-hmm. Jeffrey. And he wants to be a diplomat for the UN. So he's been working. He got that State Department grant, and he'll be doing some work with the State Department. So, yeah, the kids are awesome.
Okay, the other thing that I know that you care a lot about, and I meant to ask you about this earlier, and I know also that who knows what it's going to look like in the future.
Sure.
But I did want to ask you about Chef Shac LLC and the umbrella. I know you've got a lot of really cool brands and a lot of things going on. So I wanted to give you a chance to kind of just give me an overview of what you got going on there.
Yeah, so Chef Shac LLC is kind of our overarching mother company for Chef Shac Catering, for Get Shacked, which is our beverage line, and we have about 20 beverages that we make from fresh fruit, herbs. So we do infused teas, waters, and lemonades and limeades. We have a seasoning blend that's under the Get Shacked brand as well. It's an all-purpose seasoning, and we are actually in the testing processes. So it's been exciting getting the blends coming in from the blending company, and so we're in the testing with that. But it's amazing. We've let some chefs try it out, and some folks we know that enjoy cooking, and they're really digging it. So and then we have our Life Chef, which is kind of like a food coaching, and we go in, but we deal with more than just the food part. We deal with your life, what do you do when you wake up? How are you moving through the day? That's Life Chef, and that's kind of a one-on-one. So you work with me. Okay. And Powered by Food is our kind of community outreach program where we go into the community and we do cooking demonstrations. So my partner, Chef Patricia Washington, Chef K, everyone knows her as Chef K. She works hand in hand with me in the catering, well, most of it, but with the catering definitely. And then she does some of the demonstrations with Powered by Food. Right.
The podcast is named How I Got Here, and we've spent some time talking about how you reached this point in your life. Yeah. So where do you think here might be for you in 3 to 5 years from now?
Food is so much of my life, but I love history. And so I'm really interested in going back to school for food history and getting a degree in food history. And because I think we're more alike than we realize, and so many of our threads kind of go together. Right. And we're so much the same everywhere we go. Everywhere I've gone and I've tried the food or cooked the food or whatever, and come back like, that's the same. That's the same thing. Like we use those same ingredients, or we might use one thing different. So I find myself, more digging more into not just the actual hands-on cooking side of it, but the history of it, and of course bringing more awareness to the African Americans that have done such great work in the industry. And I guess I am so consumed with business and with food, because it is my business and my life. People might not, they just like, I just want to get full, and I just want to eat. But we don't just want to feed you. We want to nourish you. And we want you to go away feeling like we cared. You got something from us that we would give ourselves and our own family. Maybe sometimes y'all eat better than us. Definitely I know. By the time I'm done cooking, I'm exhausted.
That was Chef Shac. If you have not seen her episode on Chopped, I encourage you to watch it online. It really is cool to see one of our own showcase her talents on a national stage. Thanks for listening to the show. You can subscribe at Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're there, please leave us a review. It really does make a difference. Thanks to my amazing staff at Fiore Communications, who pick up the slack while I'm working on these podcasts, and to Troy Bloom for composing our theme music. You can hear more of Troy's creations on Facebook and Instagram at Troy Bloom Music. To connect with the podcast or suggest a future guest, follow us on social media or email us at podcast@fiorecommunications.com.